Hey everyone, welcome to a Screenwriter's Rant about Game of Thrones. God, I am so sick of people complaining about Game of Thrones on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media in general. And here's why. Number one, most of the people who are complaining are not real Game of Thrones fans. They got into the series late. They probably haven't seen all the episodes. They binge watched a bunch of stuff. They got in super late, and now they think, oh, let me throw my weight around on something popular. There has been 2 articles in The Guardian, I believe. One was in The Guardian, definitely. I think the other one was Guardian too. Both reporters have never seen Game of Thrones. Okay? How does this happen? How do you assign as an editor at a newspaper, allegedly, and go, well, we need a report on climate change. Do you know nothing about climate? Oh, perfect. Write me an article about climate change. I mean, why are we seeing articles from people who know nothing about Game of Thrones, who haven't been watching it since the beginning, and are just throwing their opinions out there like they matter? Okay? Let me tell you my credentials on Game of Thrones. Okay? First, I've watched the show since basically the beginning. I think I got in somewhere around the first, probably the first season. Yeah, first season. That's number one. So, I'm a fan of the genre. I've written the genre. I've written at least 3 different fantasy comic books, and 4 or 5 if you count the web comics. I wrote a fantasy novel. I have worked on fantasy RPGs. I played Dungeons and Dragons back starting in the 70s. Okay? So I have a long history with fantasy. And it's not just that I played Dungeons and Dragons. Because when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you don't just play the game, you read books in that genre. You read Lord of the Rings, you read other books in the fantasy genre, so you know it. You know it. And you have known it for many, many years. Okay? You think about this stuff, you talk about it with your friends, you get to know the whole genre, the various tropes. Okay? There are many different tropes in fantasies. There's dragons, there's the chosen one, there's magic swords, there's wizards, all kinds of crazy things, okay? So I am also a writer steeped in this genre. I have written novels and screenplays, television. I know how this works. Okay, so I have an opinion on this. I know how this works. Many people on Facebook and Twitter, they're saying their opinions. They have no idea how anything works. Let me explain to you Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones basically followed the books. And when I say follow the books, it didn't follow exactly what happened in the books, but basically took all the detail, all the rich detail and layering from the books for the first 3.5 seasons. Okay? By the mid-4th season, the producers who write TV ran out of book. They just ran out of book. Now, George R.R. Martin gave them outlines of his upcoming book. But what you have to understand is the TV guys had already changed stuff. Tyrion, for instance, after he kills his father, he basically just moves to Dorne and he's out of the story. Okay? And there are other characters who are out of the story. It's harder to do that in TV because certain cast members get popular, they get famous, and the TV producers don't want to get rid of them. Because if you get rid of them, then you lose viewership. That, in my opinion, was a mistake of the TV guys. Because that's the whole reason everybody loved Game of Thrones. The amazing part about those first 3 seasons was you'd watch it and people would just die that you were following, and you'd be like, wait a minute, what the hell's going to happen now? And that's why you tuned in to the next week to see who would take Robb Stark's place after the Red Wedding. The Red Wedding was the biggest shock. Now, where the TV guys kind of dropped the ball was in 5 and 6, where things sort of slowed down, and they spent episode after episode on Ramsay Bolton and all his sadistic posturing. But Ramsay, unfortunately, didn't have a vulnerable moment, really. And that's what was missing from Ramsay. That is what was missing from those 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. Now this season, which everyone's complaining about it like it's so horrible, we are seeing the payoffs. That's what we're seeing. The Hound in the Mountain, Cersei and Jaime, we're seeing payoffs. And the TV producers have done the best they can with their TV tools. Hey, we got a payoff that is not from the books, which was really good. And that's a payoff between Tyrion and his brother Jaime. Great payoff, great scene, dramatic, wonderful. And yet, we got people on Twitter, they don't talk about that. They're angry because Cersei got crushed in the basement of the castle with Jaime. That was totally fitting to the characters. Completely. Okay? It was fitting. You don't know what you're talking about if you're saying, oh, it should have been this or that, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what you're talking about. It's perfectly fitting that they would die in the Red Keep. Now, I'm not saying this season is perfect. There are missed opportunities, for sure. Let me say that Littlefinger should have been in this season. He should not have been killed. Should have gotten away. To be with Cersei at the end. To be killed now. To be killed by his own hand after his many machinations. My pitch for his death would have been for him to hire a bunch of guys to kill the Starks or kill somebody within the cast who was still left, and they end up accidentally killing him. That to me would be a fitting end. If he had died in the streets of King's Landing during the riots while the dragon was burning things and knocking things down, that would have been an appropriate ending, because that's where he grew up. That's where he made his bones, being a whoremonger, if you remember from the first season. Or if he had died, if the prostitutes had run into him in King's Landing and killed him after he lost everything. Him losing everything would have been more of a emotional payoff than just Cersei, or not Cersei, Sansa just has him killed. But that's television. Why did Sansa kill Littlefinger in that scene? Had nothing to do with the characters. Had everything to do with star power. Okay? The woman who plays Sansa is now a big star. She's going to be in the X-Men movie. She's young. She's doing things. Littlefinger, although a really good actor, he's older. He was in The Wire. He was the mayor, the Baltimore mayor who gets elected. He's more of a character actor. He gets to play characters. He's not necessarily a star. So it was a TV decision to kill him over Sansa, let's say. You can't kill Sansa. She's a big star. She's a big draw for the show. That's the way television works. This ridiculous petition to redo the end of Game of Thrones because Dany turned evil, that was on the wall. That was writing on the wall from the beginning. Okay? Dany did all sorts of nasty things throughout the series that indicated her ambition was too much. She had all the slave owners crucified. That's an extreme thing to do. Okay? Her advisors advised her against it. She sealed up that guy in the vault who ripped her off. She killed all the Dothraki in the temple. She was immune to fire, they weren't. She lit the place on fire. Terribly shot, by the way. So if you've got complaints, you missed the boat. The complaints were beginning in season 4 up until 6. It's over. Your complaints mean nothing now. HBO is not going to redo the last episode, you morons. They're not going to redo it. Why would they do that? Oh, so the 6 or 7 social justice warriors who want to see Danny win can see that? No one wants to see that. No one wants to see a recut of this. Go on YouTube and recut it yourself, you morons. This is a ridiculous petition. Everyone who signed that ought to be in therapy. You ought to go to therapy because you've wasted your time on a TV show and you've actually signed a petition online. Okay? First off, petitions online are a waste of time anyway. They do nothing. They are just the show for people who don't want to do any real activism. Okay? And it's not activism to complain about a TV show. It is a TV show. You don't like it, don't watch us. Do us all a favor. Those of us who love the show and don't watch it. Just, don't watch the last episode. Don't talk about it. Just go on and live your life and don't talk about it. But we all know why you're talking about it. It's popular. Okay? You are a bunch of popularity vampires who are desperate for any smidgen of attention on the internet. Okay? This show isn't about you. It's a show. It's for everyone. Stop ruining it for the rest of us. Stop complaining about it. Especially you reporters. You sicken me. You 2 reporters writing an article about Game of Thrones. Oh, I haven't seen the show. You haven't seen the show. It's disgusting. Those people should be fired. I hope they are fired. Not just from their current jobs, but from reporting. They should be fired from all reporting ever. That is my wish. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have problems with Game of Thrones. I have some problems with it. I'm allowed to have problems with it. I'm a writer, and I'm a guy who's been watching it from the beginning. I have street cred in the fantasy realm. Do not test my street cred there. I have way too much. Too much! I'm a certified dungeon master. Please, do not lecture me about Game of Thrones. I know from whence I speak. Game of Thrones is as good as it's going to get now. It's over. Okay? Is it the greatest show it could have been? No. That would have been Game of Thrones 1, 2, and 3. The ending I envisioned for Game of Thrones, I've already told you. Cersei wins and kills everybody. She rules over a kingdom of the dead. It's a win, but it's a Pyrrhic victory. That to me would be the Game of Thrones win. I don't know how it's going to end in the novels, but we're going to find out. And I would recommend, if you're such a fan, read the damn novels. Because there you're going to get all the nitty-gritty stuff from seasons 1, 2, and 3. But most of you are too lazy to read anything more than 140, 280 characters. Because you're a bunch of Twitterati desperate for any iota of attention. Just stop it. Stop complaining. Say something positive. Did you ever hear the term, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all? Do that. Be positive. It was a good show. Yes, it lost its step in 5 and 6 when they ran out of books. What does that tell you? It tells you that George R.R. Martin is a genius. He is the creative force behind the show, not the television guys. They pale in comparison. That's not to say they're not talented. They pulled a few things out of the fire. I don't mind this season. It's fine. I think it could have been great. It's merely good. That's what you're missing. The first 3 seasons are great. The greatest TV show of all time. 1, 2, and 3. After that, it's merely good. Season 4 goes down the good. It dips a little bit in 5 and 6 too. Okay. But it came back to pretty good in the final season. It's pretty good. Come on. Not the way I would have done it, but you have to give the guys credit. And this constant complaining. And you don't even care. That's the best part about these faux fans. And you are faux fans, complainers. Haters, as we used to call them on the internet. Remember that? Remember when we hated all the haters? Where we disliked people who would come on the internet and be negative about things we liked? What happened to those days? Now we revel in these people with their negative views and their terrible comments. I'm done with that. Let's be positive. And if you don't like this show, if you have a complaint about it, shut up. I, for one, have already purged my Twitter of people like that. Every day I find new people to purge on Twitter and on Facebook. I already purged most of Facebook, so I don't have to see anybody. I see a handful of people and that's it. Same thing on Twitter. Most of Twitter and Facebook and all social media is shouting into the wind where no one hears you. But right now, we're in the last week of Game of Thrones. This is the last day, last week, last episode. Just stop. Stop trying to ruin the show for everyone. This is why Hollywood productions have to shoot multiple endings. They have to have closed sets. It's because people can't let other people have their thing. Everybody's got to be a busybody now. We all want our own thing. This is our thing, okay? Dungeons & Dragons geeks, we love fantasy. We love the dragons and the magic and the swords. We love it. Stop trying to ruin it, okay? If you're not a fan of the genre, you don't need to come in and lecture us how it should be woke. Or how it could be better. Or how this character should live or that character should die. We don't need that, okay? You didn't care about any of this stuff when it wasn't popular. You popularity vampires. Get off of our shit. That's it. I'm done. Game of Thrones. Good night.